Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to my little corner of YouTube. Today, I'm going to be talking about the origins of all 30 Major League Baseball teams. And I got this article off the actual internet in the boring text format by Scott Allen. Before I delve into the origins and how the teams got their names, let's take a little trip down memory lane and discuss the origins of baseball. Fact number one, baseball is the oldest of all major four United States sports. So, it's older than football, it's older than basketball, it's older than hockey, and the fourth sport is baseball. Now, I did a video on hockey. Hockey, it goes back all the way to antiquity, but out of the established four, NFL, NBA, National Hockey League, the Major League Baseball is the oldest established, well-renowned franchise out of all four. Number two, as you know, there are 30 teams in the NHL, in a MLB. I'm sorry, I mixed it up a little bit. There are 30 teams in the MLB, Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball. Now, it was established in Cincinnati in 1869. So that's roughly almost, I guess, over 150 years ago. It's 150 years plus. That's how old baseball is. So now that we took a little trip down memory lane, let's delve into the particular topic. As I said earlier, the origins of all 30 Major League Baseball teams. The first team we're going to talk about is the Cleveland Indians. The Cleveland's baseball team was originally nicknamed the Naps, after star player manager Napoleon Logie. So when the team cut ties with Logie after the 1914 season, it was in the market for a new name. So they cut ties completely. I guess they didn't leave on a friendly basis. They left on a war conflict basis if they want to get rid of his name. So when the team cut ties with Logie after the 1914 season, it was in the market for a new name. Club officials and sports writers agreed on Indians in January 1915. So back then, like now, most of them solicit the fans for their advice, but I guess way back in 1914, they can care less about the fan opinion. Yeah, because I think it wasn't that many newspapers around at the time, and they definitely didn't have television and radio in 1915. So, it was in the market for a new name. Club officials and sports writers agreed on Indians in January 1915. The Boston Braves' miraculous World Series triumph may have been part of the inspiration behind Cleveland's new moniker. So they just chose Indians. They didn't choose a particular tribe. They include them all. But I don't know. Is it Native American Indians or the Asian Indians? Who knows? Next, Arizona Diamondbacks. In 1995, the expansion franchise ownership group asked fans. Okay, now they're asking fans to vote from among a list of nicknames that included Coyotes, Diamondbacks, Phoenix, Rattlers, and Scorpions. Diamondbacks, a type of desert rattlesnake, was the winner, spurring everyone the mind-boggling possibility of a team located in Phoenix, Arizona, called the Arizona Phoenix. Okay, I know the team named after a city. So Diamondback, that's a good name. It's a respected creature. It's lethal. It's deadly, and it gains your respect. That's a good name, Diamondbacks. And it's not an insect like the scorpion. At least it's a higher life form. Atlanta Braves. The Braves, who played in Boston and Milwaukee before moving to Atlanta in 1966, traced that nickname to the symbol of a corrupt political machine. Wow. James Gaffney, who became president of Boston's National League franchise in 1911, was a member of the Tammany Hall, the Democratic Party machine that controlled New York City politics throughout the 19th century. The Tammany name was derived from Tamamend, a Delaware Valley Indian chief. Okay. The society adopted an Indian headdress as its emblem, and its members became known as Braves. Sports writer Leonard Coppett described Gaffney's decision to rename his team, which had been known as the Doves. Okay, that's a weak name. That the dove elicit any fear? It's a gentle, loving creature that don't put no fear in you. In a 1993 letter to the New York Times, wouldn't it be neat to call the team the Braves, waving the symbol of the Democrats under the aristocratic Bostonians? It wouldn't bother the fans, and it didn't, especially after the Braves swept the Philadelphia Athletics in the 1914 World Series. Okay, so this team named after the Indians clan, I believe, the Braves. So at least they make the Indians seem like a brave, cultured people. My city, Baltimore Orioles. When the St. Louis Browns moved to Baltimore in 1954, the franchise was rebranded with the nickname of the Baltimore team that dominated the old National League in the late 1890s. That team, which featured the likes of Willie Keeler and John McCraw, was named after the state bird of Maryland, which is the Oriole. The orange and black colors of the male Oriole bird resemble the colors on the coat of the arms of Lord Baltimore. Boston Red Sox. Once they was a joke. They suffered from the curse of the Bambino. But in the 2000s, they broke that curse. I don't know how many World Series they won. Have they won 3 or 4 since then? You all let me know. The team that became known as the Red Sox began play wearing dark blue socks, no less, as a charter member of the American League in 1901. Now I know where we got the name Sox from. With no official nickname, the team was referred to by a variety of monikers, including Boston's and Americans, as in American League. In 1907, American owner John Tyler announced that his team was adopting red as its new color after Boston National League outfit switched to all white uniforms. Taylor's team became known as the Red Sox, a name popularized by the Cincinnati Red Stockings. Okay, so they named after Stockings. From 1867 to 1870, and used by Boston's National League franchise from 1871 to 1876. So they named after a pair of stockings. Chicago Cubs. Chicago's first professional team was known as the Chicago White Stockings. Okay, so I see they have a love affair with socks and stockings, these teams. When the team began to sell off its experienced players in the late 1880s, local newspapers began to refer to the club as Anson's Colts, a reference to player-manager Cab Anson's roster of youngsters. Okay, I guess they call it Colts for the young studs. By 1890, Colts had caught on, and Chicago's team had a new nickname. When Anson left the team in 1897, the Colts became known as the Orphans. A depressing nickname if there ever was one. When Frank Seeley took over manager duties of Chicago's youthful roster in 1902, a local newspaper dubbed the team the Cubs, and the name stuck. So the name that was created by somebody out of a clear blue sky. We're gonna call them Cubs. We like it. Let it stick. The Chicago White Sox. In 1900, Charles Cominsky moved the St. Paul Saints to the south side of Chicago. The team adopted the former nickname of its future rivals, the Cubs, and became White Stockings. There we go again, 11th favorite Stockings, which was shortened to White Sox a few years after the Cubs joined the American League in 1901. Cincinnati Reds. The Cincinnati Red Stockings, okay, here go them Stockings, so named because they wore red socks, were baseball's first openly all-professional team. In 1882, Cincinnati's entry in the newly formed American Association took the same name and retained it after moving to the National League in 1890. Red Stockings eventually became Red Legs. That's a terrible name. And Red Legs were shortened to the Reds. That's more acceptable. Before the 1853 season, club officials announced that the team would once again officially be known as the Cincinnati Redlegs. Terrible name. Around the same time, the team temporarily removed Reds from its uniforms, as the AP reported and Associated Press reported in 1953. The political significance of the word Reds these days and its effect on the change was not discussed by management. Colorado Rockies. When the team officials announced that Denver's expansion team will begin play in 1993 as the Colorado Rockies, some fans couldn't help but question why the team was adopting the same nickname as the city's former NHL franchise, which averaged an abysmal 19 wins per season from 1976 to 1982. I think for us to compare a failed hockey franchise 10 years ago is nonsense. Rocky CEO John Attorney said, "We feel very strongly that Colorado Rockies may be one of the strongest names in all of professional sports." According to a survey conducted by Denver's daily newspaper, fans prefer the nickname Bears, which had been used by Denver's most famous minor league team. The name we picked, it's strong, enduring, majestic, Attorney said. I know he's the owner, so whatever he says goes. He pay the bills. He pay the players. He pay everybody. Detroit Lions. Detroit's original minor league baseball team was officially known as the Wolverines. Okay, after the comic book character. But of course, these things have been around longer, so Wolverine as of the X-Men probably came years later. Baseball was here first. The club was also referred to as the Tigers, the nickname for the members of Michigan's oldest military unit, the 425th National Guard Infantry Regiment, which fought in the Civil War and Spanish-American War. When Detroit joined the newly formed American League in 1901, the team received formal permission from the regiment, which was known as the Detroit Light Guard, to use its symbol and nickname. Okay, the symbol and the nickname, huh? Houston Astros. Houston's baseball team was originally known as the Colt. I see a lot of these in baseball, they like to wear a coat a lot, don't they? Colt 45s. I think it's after that beer. If you've been around like me, in the mid-70s and beyond, Colt 45 was a popular beer here in the United States. But team president Judge Roy Harpins made a change in keeping with the times. In 1965, citing Houston's status as the space age capital of the world, Harpins settled on Astros. Okay, for astronomy, I guess. With our new dome stadium, we think it will also make Houston the sports capital of the world, Hoffman said. The change was likely also motivated by pressure from the Colt Firearms Company, a gun company, which objected to the use of the Colt 45 nickname. So I guess back in those times, see, baseball, like many other sports, was like minor. They wasn't as established as they are today. There was a joke back in 1800, in the early 1900s, a joke. Kansas City Royals. When Kansas City was awarded an expansion franchise in 1969, club officials chose Royals for more than 17,000 entries in the Name the Team contest. Sanford Porte, one of 547 fans who submitted Royals, was awarded an all-expense-paid trip to the All-Star Game. Porte submitted the name because of Kansas City's position as the nation's leading stockholder and feeder market in the nationally known American Royal Livestock and Horse Show. Royalty stands for the best. That's another reason. Coincidentally, Kansas City's Negro League team was nicknamed the Monarchs. Okay. Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. That's a long name. Los Angeles gained a second major league team in 1961 when the Los Angeles Angels entered the American League. The nickname had been used by Los Angeles Pacific Coast League team from 1903 to 1957. The team renamed the California Angels in 1965 and became the Anaheim Angels after the Walt Disney Company took control of the team in 1997. I see Disney has their hand in a lot of corporations, huh? Sports, comic books, on and on and on. While the team's lease with the city requires that Anaheim be part of the team name, owner Artie Moreno changed the team's name to include Los Angeles in 2005 in the hopes of tapping into the LA media market. The result is one of the most absurd names in all of professional sports, because you see how long it is. Los Angeles Dodgers. The Dodgers traced their roots to Brooklyn, where the team was known as the Bridegrooms. That's a terrible name. Supers. And beginning in 1911, the Trolley Dodgers. You see back in those early days, teams kept choosing names out of the clear blue sky. Nothing really stuck. The Dodgers nickname referenced the pedestrian who dodged the trolleys that carry passengers through the streets of Brooklyn. Okay, so it's based on pedestrians who dodge the transportation device. While the team was known as the Robins from 1914 to 1931 in honor of legendary manager Wilbur Robinson, the nickname switched back to Dodgers when Robinson retired. When Walter O'Malley moved the franchise to Los Angeles after the 1957 season, he elected to keep the name. Miami Marlins, named after some type of aquatic life form. The Marlins take their name from the minor league Miami Marlins that called South Florida home from 1955 to 1960, 1962 to 1970, and 1972 to 1988. So I guess this team used to move around a lot. Owner Wayne Huizenga hoped to give his expansion team, which entered the league in 1993, more regional appeal by including Florida in the name. However, when the Marlins moved into their new baseball-only stadium in 2012, they became the Miami Marlins. That sounds more appropriate because Florida is the state and Miami is the city in which they reside. Milwaukee Brewers. The Brewers' nickname, a nod to Milwaukee's beer industry, okay, because Brewers, was used often and only by various Milwaukee-based teams during the late 19th century. When the expansion Seattle Pilots relocated to Milwaukee after one failed season in 1969, the team adopted the traditional Brewers nickname under the ownership of Bud Selig. Minnesota Twins. Minnesota and St. Paul, which are separated by the Mississippi River and collectively known as the Twin Cities, argued for years over where an expansion team in Minnesota, should one arrive, will call home. When the Washington Senators moved to Minneapolis in 1961, club officials settled on Twins for the two twin cities, as the team nickname and unveiled an emblem showing two baseball players with hands clasped in front of a huge baseball. New York Mets. Team officials asked fans to choose a nickname from among 10 finalists when New York was awarded an expansion National League franchise in 1961. The finalists were Avengers, not after the comic book Avengers, I'm sure, Bees, Brewers, Continentals, Jets, Mets, NYBS, Rebels, Skyliners, and Skyscrapers. The team received 2,563 mail entries, which included 9,613 suggestions and 644 different names. Mets was the resounding winner, followed by two nicknames that weren't among the 10 suggestions, Empires and Islanders. As the New York Times noted, what the fans will call the team when it begins play, of course, will depend in part on how it performs. One of the reasons that the team officials chose Mets was because it has a brevity that will delight headline writers, because there's only 3 letters. Another reason was the nickname's Historical Baseball Association. The New York Metropolitans, often called the Mets, played in the American Association from 1863 to 1888, only 5 years. Here come the famous New York Yankees. In 1903, the original Baltimore Orioles, so the Yankees came from Baltimore. So when he win, it's basically Baltimore winning. But of course, in New York, they have deep pockets there. So if they stayed here in New York, they probably still would have been a sorry, pathetic team, like the Orioles are. In 1903, the original Baltimore Orioles moved to New York, where they became the Highlanders, a poor name, as was common at that time. The team, which played in the American League, was also named as the New York Americans. New York press editor Jim Price coined the nickname Yanks, or Yankees, in 1904 because it was easy to fit in headlines like Mets, 3 letters. Oakland Athletics. The nickname is one of the oldest in baseball, dating to the early 1860s. And the Athletic Baseball Club of Philadelphia in 1902, New York Giants manager John McCraw referred to Philadelphia's American League team as a white elephant. What does that mean? The slight was picked up by a Philadelphia reporter, and the white elephant was adopted as the team's primary logo. The nickname and the elephant logo were retained when the team moved to Kansas City in 1955 and to Oakland in 1968. Yeah, so we see back in those days of all the sports, in the early beginning of sports, they moved a lot. I'm sure some of the sports are not part of, that are not of the Big Four. I'm sure they move around from city to city too. Teams that are not the baseball, basketball, football, hockey, the minor league teams like in volleyball, soccer, or football, they probably move from city to city as well. The Philadelphia Phillies, founded in 1883 as the Quakers, that's a terrible name. The franchise changed its nickname to the Philadelphias, which soon became Phillies. Nice. New owner Robert Carpenter held a contest to rename the team in 1943, and the Blue Jays were selected as the winner. While the team wore a Blue Jay patch on its uniforms for a couple of seasons, the nickname failed to catch on. Pittsburgh Pirates. After the Players League collapsed in 1890, the National League Pittsburgh club signed 2 players, including Lou Berenber, whom the Philadelphia Athletics had forgotten to place on their reserve list. A Philadelphia sports writer claimed that Pittsburgh's pirated away Brewer, and the Pirates nickname was born from pirated away or stolen. San Diego Padres. When San Diego was awarded an expansion team in 1969, the club adopted the nickname of the city's Pacific Coast League name, the Padres. The nickname, which is Spanish for father or priest, was a reference to San Diego's status as the first Spanish mission in California. San Francisco's Giants. The New York Giants moved to San Francisco in 1957 and retained their nickname, which dates back to 1885. It was during that season, according to legend, that New York Gothams manager Jim Mutry referred to his players as his Giants after a rousing win over Philadelphia. Seattle Mariners. Mariners, I'm sure it's a fish. Mariners was a winning entry among more than 600 suggestions in a Name the Team contest for Seattle's expansion franchise in 1976. Multiple fans submitted the nickname Mariners, but the team determined that Roger Sudas of Bolivia provided the best reason. I've selected Mariners because of the natural association between the sea and Seattle and her people, who have been challenged and rewarded by it, said Somodas, who received 2 season tickets and an all-expense-paid trip to an American League city on the West Coast. That's a nice trip. Most teams, when they give you a winner something, they say come to the baseball game, football game, basketball game. That's it. This team gave you an all-expense-paid trip. I think one sports league sent their to the fan to a vacation resort place. St. Louis Cardinals. In 1899, the St. Louis Browns became the St. Louis Perfectos. That season, Willie McHale, a columnist for the St. Louis Republic, reportedly heard a woman refer to the team's red stockings as a lovely shade of cardinal. McHale included a nickname in his column, and it was an instant hit among fans. The team officially changed its nickname in 1900. Tampa Bay Rays. Vince Naimoli, owner of the Tampa Bay's expansion team, chose Devil Rays out of more than 7,000 suggestions submitted by the public in 1995. The reaction was not positive. So far, I've fielded about 20 phone calls protesting Devil Rays, and most of the callers have described themselves as Christians who are upset about the word devil. A Tampa Tribune columnist told a reporter less than a week after the nickname was announced, Naimoli reportedly wanted to nickname his team the Stingrays, but it was trademarked by a team in the Hawaiian Winter League. The team dropped the devil after the 2007 season, and the curse that had plagued the franchise for the previous decade was apparently lifted, as Tampa Bay made a surprise run to the World Series the following season. Oh wow, well something good came after the name switch. The Texas Rangers. A second franchise named the Senators left Washington in 1972. This time for Arlington. Wow, so Washington had about 3 teams in total. 2 Senators, and now the Washington, whatever they call it, Capitals or whatever. I forgot the name of the team. This time for Arlington, Texas owner Robert Short renamed the team the Rangers after the Texas law enforcement agency that was formed under Stephen F. Arson in 1820s. Toronto Blue Jays. More than 30,000 entries were received during a 5-week Name the Team contest. A panel of 14 judges, so they took that name serious. They got 14 judges, including 10 Toronto media members, selected 10 finalists from that list. The club's board of directors settled on Blue Jays. The Blue Jays was felt to be the most appropriate of the final 10 names submitted, according to a statement issued by the board's chairman, R. Howard Webster. Blue Jay is a North American bird, bright blue in color, with white undercovering and a black neck ring. It is strong, aggressive, and inquisitive. It dares to take on all comers, yet it is down to earth, gutsy, and good looking, which is true. Washington Nationals. Washington's original baseball team was interchangeably referred to as the Senators and Nationals, or Nats for short, for most of its time in the district before relocating to Minnesota in 1960. Washington's 1961 expansion franchise was known almost exclusively as the Senators until it moved to Texas after the 1971 season. When the Montreal Expos relocated to the nation's capital, when the Montreal Expos relocated to the nation's capital in 2005, the team revived the Nationals nickname. So, that's it, my friends. Thank you for stopping by. If you like this trip down memory lane about how the Major League Baseball teams got their name and their brief history, give me a thumbs up. If you would like to subscribe for future content on whatever I find interesting, please subscribe. You all have a wonderful day. God be with you.